is Laura Hobbs, and she's running for Supervisor District 2 of Shasta County, and I'm Martha Scheeler with Team Hope, teamhopelibrary.org. Just wanted to check in with you. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah, what is this, episode 8 that we're on?
I think it's 9. I made another one, that video roll of some pictures of people that are average citizens that are patriot. So you had a debate last night.
Yes, it was held by the League of Women Voters.
They aren't really on your side, are they?
No, not really. They tend to be a lot more liberal leaning.
So I heard that you're not allowed to salute the flag at the beginning of one of their meetings. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's against their policies. You can find videos on YouTube of other candidates facing similar situations where they weren't allowed to have the flag salute. So when we all got 3 minutes to introduce ourselves, I asked everybody to stand up and salute the flag. I had a friend in the audience that came to the front with a full flag, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's pretty cool. What was your greatest takeaway?
The questions were good. The questions came mostly from the audience.
Okay.
And I don't feel like there was any really pointed questions or gotcha questions. It was really just kind of asking about local events and local board meeting topics and whatnot.
What did you feel like was the most important thing for the people that were there to hear from you?
I think the most important thing was to hear the sincerity and the fact that I'm genuine and honest and forthright, and that I can answer a question quickly and easily without spending a lot of time telling you all about my qualifications and whatnot, just focusing on the issues and being direct and to the point.
Right.
I think the voters are a little bit tired of having politicians that won't really answer a question straight out directly. So they got to have a real good personal feel for all the candidates.
Right.
And the way that they answered the questions and the content of their remarks as well.
So I kind of get the impression that you've been talking to a lot of different people because your district is vast. It's very rural, right?
Yes.
And so how are you connecting with the people that are out and away?
Primarily so far is by phone calls, but also going up there in person, talking to folks who are around and available.
Okay.
They have a general store up there. We've talked to a lot of people who, have a lot to say and they want to have their story heard. So sometimes if I'm not the one personally making the call, I'll get information to call this person back. They have a lot to say about what happened with I Go Ono and how they're not satisfied with the settlement. The distribution of the $50 million settlement. And for our listeners who aren't aware, the DA of Shasta County, Stephanie Bridget, settled a case for $50 million, and the citizens of I Go Ono only got $200,000 of that. And it's a slap in the face for the citizens who lost so much. And they've been victims of this fire, and now they're victims again because instead of them having some kind of compensation or money returned to them, it's being sent everywhere else.
Does the Children's Defense Fund receive contracts with the county? Do they provide services to the county?
I believe they do, but I'm not too familiar with who contracts with them.
And I heard that some personnel left when they got that money. Tell me about that.
Yeah, a couple of county employees, high-level county employees, as soon as the settlement went through, they left the county and they went and took a position on the board of the Children's Defense Fund.
So the money from the Zog Fire that didn't go to the victims of the Zog Fire, didn't go to a program that benefits victims of the Zog Fire directly. And it went to pay salaries of high level. They didn't go for a pay raise or pay drop. They went for, it would have been at least a lateral move, right?
Oh, yeah, probably more than that. But.
And they have a good benefit package being part of PERS. So it had to have been a good deal for them to leave their PERS package. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's suspicious to say the least. But if laws were violated in the way that distribution was handled, we need justice for the people of I Go Ono. And if nothing else, we need to have a law or a local ordinance going forward saying that if the county settles a case, if you use county funds to settle a case, then the county, the board of supervisors who are directly in touch with the constituents and those that were harmed, get to decide how that settlement is distributed.
Okay. We have a recall coming up.
That's on March 5th,
Okay.
I urge people to vote no on that.
It's not a good recall.
And yes, it's not a good recall. If Kevin Cry, our local supervisor in District 1, gets recalled, then Gavin Newsom will appoint his successor.
When it was launched by Mary Rickert, who giggled and rubbed her hands together, it was retaliatory. It wasn't a function of government. It was somebody retaliating indirectly. Because Kevin Cry didn't recall Modi, and Kevin Cry didn't, but they are retaliating against him. He's like the sacrificial lamb in a way. And
because his district is the most liberal out of all of them. So they think he's the weakest link, the easiest one to get rid of.
Boy, are they wrong.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting is the liberal district that they think they have. It's liberal because they cheated and made it look liberal. But the people that actually voted in that district, there's a different composition there. And you know that because you looked at the cast vote records and saw the machine manipulation. So our registrar of voters would like the county to believe that there's a lot more liberals in this county, so much so that in the 2020 election, she didn't see a problem with Joe Biden getting 30,000, exactly 30,000, not 30,001 votes. Because the composition needed to be 2/3 to 1/3. And it's like, oh, but, you know, Trump won. What's your problem? She literally quoted saying that. But at the same time, with the manipulation, tell me more about that. You've done the analysis.
So what I'm finding is that there is manipulation in the election you're talking about was Trump's 2020 election, and they cheated in it. Despite the fact that he won, they cheated in it, and it's part of a statewide movement because what they do is they skim off votes from places like Shasta County, and they pump it towards the statewide total because each state is not won county by county. It's by the whole state.
Right, and he could not have won unless they added votes to small counties where there weren't votes. Interestingly enough, small counties where there was wildfires, people were displaced, mail-in voting, and the mail-in voting has to correspond with a residence address, but if your house just burned down, there's like this opening because you're a little busy getting your life back together after losing everything. Am I right?
Yeah.
So chain of custody, you were talking about chain of custody earlier today.
Yes. Just to bring all the listeners up to speed, what I witnessed as an election observer was after the ballots were opened in what they call the blue room, they were set on a shelf in open air. They weren't in a container. They weren't counted. We didn't know how many ballots were sitting there on the shelf. So that was one of the questions I had as an observer was how many ballots are sitting there? And how many did you open? And then later I realized, you know what? They shouldn't have just been sitting there. We need to know more than just how many are there. We need to have a chain of custody protecting them. And they were in a room that was a locked room. And so they said, well, it doesn't matter because it was a locked room. Nobody could get in or out. We've been doing public records requests. And I just got a response today. And they cited California Election Code 2118, which states elections official shall maintain and document uninterrupted chain of custody for each ballot card and each ballot storage container. So we are entitled to and deserve chain of custody for those ballots. And that there was a problem when they didn't have chain of custody in the blue room and they didn't have chain of custody in the Bat Cave when they then transferred it over to the Bat Cave.
What they called a sealed container was the room itself. Didn't you ask them for the logs of who unlocked that door with their card?
Yes, I asked them. I told them they could redact the names and all the private information, but they refused. They refused to give me anything. And then right below that, so they cited the election code 2118. So they also cited that, well, they're only required to do this in a risk limiting audit. And they said, we didn't do a risk limiting audit in the November 7th, 2023 election. However, they did do a 1% count of the ballots. So I think somebody needs to look into this. I hope this is something that Team Hope is going to be able to take on. What California election codes were violated and adding this to our dossier of many, many, many other California election codes that have been violated in the November 7th, 2023 election and which probably are in the process of being violated now as we speak.
The chain of custody is codified on a federal level, so California can't make it any less of a stringent chain of custody requirement. They can only make it more stringent. And so they do have a need to follow that guideline, and the EAC guideline looks like a good beginning, but we are in the process of researching that, and we appreciate your asking these questions and getting kind of good to get their answer so you can find out how they're going to dodge, right?
Well, exactly. And as a supervisor, I would have the opportunity to propose an ordinance which states exactly how the chain of custody will be maintained, shall be maintained.
Isn't it sad? Isn't it sad that the supervisors have to pass an ordinance in order for the registrar of voters for the county elections office to take seriously their responsibility to maintain that chain of custody for the voters? They're in a fiduciary relationship with the voters, their constituents, the people that actually vote for them. They actually have a fiduciary, which means they have a trust-based responsibility to those citizens. There was a really good article in the Sierra thread. He puts a quote in there: "The right of voting for representatives is the primary right by which all other rights are protected. To take away this right is to reduce a man to slavery, for slavery consists in being subject to the will of another, and he that has not a vote in the election of representatives is in this case." Thomas Paine.
Yes, I love that quote.
We have to realize that unless we pay attention in our counties, and I hope people are listening beyond Shasta County, unless the citizens stand up for their right to vote, they are actively giving away their freedoms.
Yeah.
Right. So these registrars of voters have, for decades, maybe for a century, have operated these elections offices without really the people watching, and that's our fault. That's our fault because we let them do that. They have this impression that they have no responsibility to us, the voters, and we're just these dumb people. I actually believe that because of how we've requested records from every elections office in the state, and the majority of them treat us as though we are ignorant and unworthy of asking questions. That is how they treat us.
Well, first of all, I'd like to state that even if we did have a local ordinance, I don't believe that Kathy Allen would choose to follow it.
Right.
She's insubordinate in many ways. And one of the quotes that I like to, I put on my flyers and I publish with my campaign is: "The people of this county do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them."
Right. And there are really good people at the counter. We should not disrespect the people that answer the phones. They are just doing their job. And most of them, until recently, have had no sense that there was anything wrong because they were told, this is how you do it. You have to follow these rules. If you don't follow these rules, you're going to lose your job. So do this the way it's supposed to be done. And I know that because when I go to get a birth certificate or anything like that, they are following the rules. They are the ones that are absolutely convinced that the rules need to be followed. They have no idea until recently that the rules aren't being followed upstream.
I believe that is for the most part the case. However, now that we know what we know about the cast vote record data, everyone has been notified that there is fraud. They should be taking it seriously, but instead what they're doing is they're labeling us as election skeptics, election deniers, extremists. And Suzanne Barrymore, she's actually on the Citizens Election Commission, but she was speaking, I think it was at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and she was talking about how these people are coming and harassing, and she's reporting them as terrorists.
That's rich. For so long, I watched those meetings and watched her walk up there so nice. And I had a lot of respect for her because everybody else was being mean and she was being so respectful. But when I spoke, she was the jersey waving cat caller that was yelling over me. When you're on camera, you're one way. And when you're off camera, you're not. It comes from a place where somebody's so false on camera and so different when they're sitting where the camera can't see them. She has no credibility with me whatsoever. And she's on the Elections Commission. So these are people that wave a jersey. You can't take them seriously when they behave that way. When there's somebody like you who's like, I don't care what team we're on, let's get to the truth. That's what you wanted.
One more item about Suzanne Barrymore. She spends a lot of time at the ROV office. I don't know what she's doing there. It arouses suspicion, I guess, let's put it that way, because she was also seen there on election night, and she was seen in areas where the regular citizens are not allowed to be.
It's interesting.
So she's allowed backdoor access from all that we can tell, and I don't know if that is, her tactic for for the upcoming election, to get in good with the people who count the vote?
I don't know what it is. The cheating that happened that we've seen as a team statewide, the people that accomplished that cheating are not standing in the ROV's office unless they're the people that are running the machines, which we know now that representatives from the machine companies were running the elections, not the elections office.
Yeah, and they were here on November 7th as well, 2023.
Why is she in proximity to them?
Yes, why is she in proximity? But I do have to say that a lot of the cheating is orchestrated at the statewide level and at the national level as well. I know from what I've seen and what I've observed with the election data, the cast vote record data, that we do have cheating in local contests as well. It's at all levels of government.
Right. I saw a while back somebody sent a notice to San Luis Obispo voters, and it was registration status check for the 2024 election. For your information, we are finding there are unauthorized changes that have been made to many voter registration statuses. Voter says the status is not found in the county's records. The party affiliation's been changed from Republican to no party preference. The voter registration status has been changed to inactive. If you received a ballot and voted in November 2022 in the election, please check your voter registration status now to confirm nothing has changed. I recommend you do this soon. You may need to re-register in order to be able to receive a ballot for and be able to vote in the 2024 presidential primary election. So I just wanted to let Shasta County voters know that it would be good to double check. And if you did not receive a ballot, a mail-in ballot for the primary, which if you're a Republican, you should receive a mail-in ballot if you're registered Republican, right?
Yes. For my race, it's nonpartisan, so it doesn't matter what political party you're registered as. You can still vote at the local level, but to vote for President Trump, you need to be registered as a Republican. Come November, there'll be no limitations. You can vote for whoever, but for the primary, if you want to vote for Trump, you have to be registered Republican.
Right. So in San Luis Obispo, there was an interesting public records event. So a citizen in San Luis Obispo County, they were having a recall and she requested public records from the county. We've run into this where they want to charge you for those records and they're charging you for employee time, which is they're not allowed to charge you for employees it's in the course of their work. We've already paid them. But they were not only charging for the employee, they were charging for overtime. They were charging for benefits. So the citizen said, give me a record showing me what I'm paying for. And they would not provide it for her. And the county took her to small claims court.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm not even sure if she got any records. She didn't get an itemized list of what they were charging her for, but they prevailed in small claims court against her. So now she owes money. She decided to appeal it. You can actually appeal a small claims decision. And you're allowed to have an attorney at the appeals stage and you're allowed to present evidence. And so she went and she represented herself. The county council represented the county and she won.
Awesome.
And the judge said, you can't charge for this, and you can't charge for that, and you can't charge for overtime, and you can't charge for employee benefits, and you can't charge for these things. And guess what? There's actually an opinion that can be found and taken to other jurisdictions. Do you know why Team Hope's excited about this? We've paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for records.
Paid?
For cast vote records, we were charged for them. And now we've asked for audit logs, and this is the best part. Los Angeles County has asked for $18,000 for audit logs that we've asked for other counties, and it takes seconds to push a button and get them from the archived data. And Los Angeles County has all but admitted that they didn't properly archive them, but they want to charge us to pay them for the overtime so that they can archive data they were supposed to archive and they didn't. $18,000 private citizens should have to pay for records to bring transparency so that we can guard and protect our vote and make sure it was accurately counted. We've asked for it from other counties, and we've already seen some interesting anomalies in the counties that have provided them. Stay tuned. So what else is going on?
I can tell you some local news from the Board of Supervisors meeting this week. And the board, they did decide to go from a suburban county to a rural county.
That's pretty awesome. My understanding is that there was grant money that's available to rural counties that isn't available when you go to a suburban county. I just want to tell people that are listening, there's no urban. There is no urban within hours.
100 miles or 200 miles?
Yeah, there's no urban. So we're adjacent suburban. We have a long reach. We're like, we're just really close to Sacramento, so we're considered suburban. And the benefits to being suburban were to individual people at the top of the management in this county.
Yes, it enabled the CEOs and the executives to have a pay raise.
I have so much appreciation for this place that we live, this gorgeous place in the top of the valley where mountains rise up and there's snow all year. We have a beautiful place that we live. And the majority of people that live here are good people.
Yes,
some of them...
Salt of the earth.
Salt of the earth, yeah. Some of them are quite colorful. Shasta County reaches almost to Nevada on the east side. It goes way up into the mountains, into the trees, up into Fall River Valley where there's 19 springs feeding a river that comes down into Bernie, one of the most beautiful waterfalls on the planet. And then you go to the north and you're at the feet of Shasta, right? Then you go to the west and you're out in this open plains of Igo Ono. When you're on the south, you're along the Cottonwood Creek. So this entire area, there's vast arid places. There's beautiful, lush forests. We have every reason to preserve this county and to not surrender to people that have come from somewhere else and have decided to commandeer our government.
Exactly. I think we as citizens need to stand up for our sovereignty here in Shasta and against the state that has taken tyrannical control over us and retaliated specifically against Shasta County. My next town hall can be found on my website, which is votelaurahobbs.com. That's Vote Laura Hobbs, LauraHobbs. Try to keep it up to date. And, I'm a bit different than other politicians. I put it all out there for everyone to see. So you can decide and see if you like what's out there on my website and vote for me on March 5th.
Well, thank you, Laura, for meeting with me.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
God bless you.
God bless you too.